Hey guys, welcome back to Chariot Palmistry. My name is Sulabh Jain, and in this video I'd like to be giving you guys my predictions on what I think is going to be happening over the month of February. And generally speaking, it's going to be a neutral month for most of this month. The main energy or planets that I'll be looking at is the Rahu, north node of the moon, and the transit of the moon over Pisces. That's going to be happening on about the 24th of February. So for most of this month, energy is going to be flat. And then from the 24th of February through to about the 10th of March, there's going to be a lot of chaos going on. You'll notice a lot of people feeling burnt out, lots of people just generally being tired and drained in life. It's going to go on for a 2-week period. On the other side of that, the world starts to put itself together and things start to get up to a whole lot better. In fact, the months of April, May and June are going to be incredible for a lot of people. But we'll come back and talk about all that in just a second. First, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the wars that have been going on in the world. Right now, there's a conflict going on between Ukraine and Russia. There's another war going on between Israel and Palestine. And these two centers of conflict are where most of the world seems to have its focus on. Because the Russia-Ukraine one, that's been going on, I want to say, for about 2 years now. We actually did predict that here on this channel. A while ago I predicted that there'd be a war happening northwest of India. And at the time I assumed it was going to be like Pakistan or Afghanistan. It ended up being further northwest, as far out as Ukraine. That war's still going on. It doesn't look like there's any end in sight there. And normally when these sorts of things happen, it's because somebody benefits from a war not being resolved. You see, wars are all about Mars energy, and Mars is all about discipline and willpower and fighting to the end. When you don't fight to the end, you suppress the energy of Mars. So the Ukraine war is more or less like a Mars-based war without a resolution in sight. It's unlikely there's going to be any resolution there, at least in the short term. Then there's the war in Israel and Palestine, which is just blowing up and involving so many other countries right now, including like the US, Syria, I think Lebanon. Recently Pakistan and Iran started throwing bombs at each other. It's really getting crazy over there. I didn't predict that war. What I did predict was back in October there'd be an armed conflict. I think I said southwest of India. So I was assuming there'd be a war in Africa, I think it was. Instead, it ended up happening far west of India in the Middle East. The energy there is chaotic because it's not a war that should be happening because the energy just doesn't account for that. This seems to be somebody deliberately creating a conflict in order to have one. I'm a little cynical, and my thinking is it's an election year in the US. This is probably the energy that's going on behind the armed conflict in Israel blowing up out of all proportion. Recently, 3 American soldiers died, and America went out and bombed, I think, Syria and a couple other places. I expect this conflict to get wider and wider depending on what the opinion polls say. That's a cynical prediction, and it has nothing to do with astrology either. Let's just see how that energy goes. The energy, though, to pay attention to in terms of armed conflict is in Africa, strangely enough. Now, one series of wars or issues that have been gone in Africa that aren't hitting the headlines because everyone's talking about Ukraine and Israel is these conflicts going on in the Sudan and that general region. There actually has been a war going on there. The one I thought didn't happen, the prediction I thought didn't happen for the war in Africa, it is actually happening. That's the one I want everyone paying attention to, because that's the one I think is going to blow up out of all proportion. The Ukraine one, people getting paid on each side to prolong the war, so the war will be prolonged. The Israel war is going on more or less for political purposes for an election cycle in America. So innocent people are going to get killed so politicians can keep their job or take over someone else's job. Let's put all of that to one side. Africa is where our attention should be. So that's the first thing I want to say about all these armed conflicts. Very, very cynical view I've got over there. there's a part B to all of this, which is what I think could be a debt problem that goes on with the world. You see, late last year in the month of November, I think it was, Ketu transited into Virgo. Now, Virgo is the area for debt and financial problems like that. And Ketu is a planet for detachment. It cuts off debt when it transits into Virgo. Rahu is a very tough planet to time correctly. That and Rahu actually. Sometimes they give their results straight away after a transit. Sometimes they do it about 6 months later. And sometimes they don't give their effects until the very end of the transit when Ketu comes out of Virgo. That's not for another 18 months, well, 15 months from now. The point I'm trying to make is there should have been a debt-related crisis in the world in November of last year, but that didn't end up happening. So I'm predicting there could be a debt-related crisis 6 months after that point, which is about the month of April. If there isn't a debt-related problem in April of this year, then there could be a debt-related crisis in the world in April of 2025. So I want you guys to benchmark, to make a note of that date, April of either 2024 or April of 2025. Ketu is going to cut out a lot of debt in the world. That's by bond market defaults, bank runs, crises, things like that ought to be going on. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. And that's actually the wildcard prediction here. I'm going to be talking about stocks and crypto in just a second, but the unknown variable here is what happens with the debt markets because of Ketu over the month of April. Now, having said that, let me tell you what my predictions are. For the general stock market, I'm generally bullish on this, at least up until 2026. I think the market will be going up and up and up in a big way actually. However, I do think there's going to be a minor correction happening with the market from now until the 10th of March. And that's roughly when that new moon in Pisces is going to be. That's the energy that's going to shake everything up a bit. After that point, I think the market just continues to climb up. So that's the first thing. My next prediction is that the crypto markets should be going up. Over here, I've put up a screenshot from my video on my 2024 crypto predictions. And one of the predictions over there is that there's going to be a move up starting at the end of the first week. So we're at that point right now. The crypto should generally be heading up for the next couple months until there's a correction happening in the month of April. My next prediction is gold and silver is generally setting up for a big move, but I don't think that big move is going to happen until the middle of March. So more or less going sideways with a bit of up and down zigzagging motion there, but after mid-March is when it should start going up. So those are the main predictions over here. I've put them over here on the screen for you. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks a lot, guys.